for those who are new to the game, Echoes of the Plum Grove is a farming simulation game set in a colonial era, roughly around the 1700s. You can set up a farm, connect with fellow townsfolk, buy and sell goods, get a pet, and even die from diseases. Fans of farming games will find a lot of familiar things in this game, including fishing minigames, mining, animal husbandry, and of course, farming. However, you will find that this game brings a lot of rare and even new aspects to the farming genre, such as diseases and contagious epidemics that can kill off your character and even the other NPCs. There's also trading with individual NPCs versus just trading in stores, and eventually you can even play as your own biological or adopted child. So there's definitely lots of fun to be had here at Echoes of the Plum Grove. Get familiar with your UI and the tools available for you. So, currently with Echoes of the Plum Grove, it's actually quite a simple UI. At the top right corner, you can see the date and time as well as the season you're in. And as you can see, it says summer 1701. So that should be the season and then the year. And then we have the time and the day. So Wednesday 17th. You can also see that there's a basically a sundial clock that tells you whether you're in the daytime, and then it slowly moves on all the way to nighttime. Now, these three items here show you some of the survival aspects here in Echoes of Plum Grove. The bar with the loaf of bread is your hunger meter, and over time your hunger meter will slowly decay, and you really need to eat at least once a day. So generally speaking, once it hits this large marker here, this large notch, you are about halfway through, and your character will start to feel hunger pangs. You can also see that there's a plate here with food that's left over, and when you hover your mouse on top of it, you can actually see that there's a timer. So it's about like 5 minutes before the character starts to get hungry. Okay, and when they start to get hungry, you will notice that their expression will change and that they kind of start to slow down. Now, the heart actually is not, as you can see, it's a full heart, and basically it represents your health. Now, generally speaking, your heart should always be full. Um, I haven't really experienced a lot of deaths in this game yet, but it does show when you go into the family tab, which I will show you later on. You will actually see that your health is actually also a meter on its own as well. Okay. Now the other meter with the Z's is actually your sleep meter. Similar to the hunger meter, over time your this will decay. And as far as I'm aware, it doesn't seem to be affected by your interactions or by the level of activity you do. It's just time will slowly cause it to fall down. And then once you hit the halfway mark, similar to the hunger meter, there will be another symbol that will show up, and it will indicate that your character will start to get sleepy. Your character will also change their expression, and even more will slowly slow down. You will see them, it'll take you much longer to walk around. Uh, versus if your character is fully rested. Unlike hunger, which can be restored by eating, the sleep cannot be restored because there's no other way to rest other than to just go to bed. And so this is something that you have to pay attention to. But it's not a really big deal. As far as I'm aware, there's no real big penalty if you completely fall asleep. However, I do find that the character being slow starts to get really on my nerves, so I prefer to not get it so that they actually collapse. Okay. Now, going down here, we have, as you can see, your little your hotkeys. So, and they are, as you can see, they're numbered. So you will use your number keys. As far as I'm aware, this game is controller supported. However, I believe it is optimized for the PC and for mouse and keyboard. So, as you can see, I don't know if this will change with a controller, but I do play with a mouse and keyboard. Now let's talk about another menu that doesn't quite show up often, but it's something very essential, and that's basically this menu right here. So as you can see, you can access this menu by clicking on these three lines or by pressing M, and it'll give you several tabs that will basically show you the rest of your UI. Okay, so the first one, items, shows you your inventory. It also shows you the money you have. Okay, now with regards to, there will be items that you will pick up that you will want to throw away, because not everything can actually be sold in this game. It's something that's very that I find different from other farming games I've played. Usually in other farming games you play, everything can be sold, but in this game there will be some items that you cannot sell. So for example, sometimes used furniture, like when you choose to upgrade your bed, it's actually difficult. You cannot actually sell the bed, but you can gift them. Okay, same thing with some of the recipes that you will pick up. You will definitely get some duplicate recipes, and sometimes, and you cannot resell duplicate recipes. You can gift them to other NPCs. However, another thing you can do is you can actually throw it away, and this is your trash can. Now throwing away means you don't get anything for it back, so in my opinion, it's better to give things away versus just throwing it away. However, there are certain like NPCs have their own likes and dislikes, so sometimes giving them something they don't like can cause them to not be happy with you. Okay? Now, the other tab goes into the family, and this is basically your character info. As you can see, in this game, I've already married, and I've married Jack, which is a very popular character, and I've had a child with Jack named Lucia. And as you can see, this is what I mean about the meters. As you can see, there's the sleep meter, there's the heart meter, which is your health meter, and there's the hunger meter, which as you can see is right now I'm about halfway through. And you can also see an age meter. Okay, so in this case, I am about halfway through my adulthood. Okay, and then once I reach the end, I will become a senior or an elder. This is also the area where your costumes can change. So if I have, for example, different costumes, I can choose them by clicking, and it'll give me the different options. Okay, now down here is actually very important. Okay, because right here, this is your lantern. So one of the items that you get through questing is a lantern, and unless you have a lantern, you cannot go mining. So you want to make sure to complete the quest that rewards a lantern as soon as possible. Okay, it's not easy to do crafting in this game. And I will go over crafting a little bit later, but basically it crafting in this game is very resource intensive. The process of crafting is very easy, but the collection of the resources can be a bit grinding. And so one of the things with the lanterns is that you need to constantly replenish it. And so as you can see, there's a meter here that basically shows you how much oil is left in the lantern. If you have a spare oil, so for example, if I go here, if I go to my chest and get an oil, so this is the lantern oil, okay, and then I go to that menu again, you will now see under family, you will now see that there's this little oil symbol on my lantern. And the minute my oil is down to zero or close to zero, all you need to do is just left click on this on this oil icon, and it will automatically refill. Okay, but you need to make sure your a lantern oil is inside your inventory. Okay, now the next thing is you have a collection book that basically goes over all the items you've collected or done, and as you can see, all the recipes that you've made so far, or not necessarily made. Some of these I haven't made, but I've been in contact with, such as I've purchased them or I've been gifted them. Okay, and so you can actually see right here all your options. You can press cancel to go back to the menu. Now this one shows you the different skills. As far as I'm aware, when if you eventually pass away and play as your child, the skills should go back to zero. Or if your child has a certain kind of position, then they will have different skills than you. Okay, and as you play as well, you will find that there will be options that allow you to choose specific skill sets depending on how you want to play the game. Okay, now this item here is basically related to your fishing rod. So if you want to use specific items with your fishing rod, let me see if I can find one. So as you can see, I have I have this one, and I think that's the only one I have. Is that the only one I have? Okay, this one as well, and then this one. So these three things are three different fishing lures that I can use in conjunction with my fishing rod. As you can see, as you hover over them, there's a description that tells you how you're supposed to use them. Okay, and now how you actually use them though is you go to that menu. Okay, you go to family tab, and then you click here. Okay, when you click here, so for example, when you have nothing, it'll look like this. And then when you click on it, it will show you all the available lures that you have in your inventory. Just like the lantern, they have to be in your inventory for them to show up here. And as you can see, everything has a durability setting. So yes, there is a decay or a durability setting. And as you can see, the more you use an item, so the more I fish with this lure on, eventually there'll come a time wherein this will get destroyed and I'll need to replace it with a new lure. Okay, now this is the next most important thing that you will want to constantly pay attention to, and this is your calendar. So if you click on your calendar, you can see that it will show you all the different events that is happening for the week, for the month, or for the season. And in this game has a very short season. Every season, as far as I'm aware, is only 21 days. And so you really only have about 7 day weeks to work on your farm. And a lot of the plants are seasonal, and so you want to keep an eye on them. You will also notice that there's other events. So as you can see, this tombstone reflects funerals, and then they will tell you who passed away. Usually lots of NPCs slowly pass away. Then there's also the wedding rings, which show you that there's wedding ceremonies happening. And this is an interesting thing about this game, because in this game the NPCs basically go about their own lives. If you never interact with them, it doesn't affect them. So but one thing that can affect is something like getting married. So it's something that you have to pay attention to fairly quickly. Otherwise, what will happen is the person you want to get married may get married to somebody else. So, yeah. And then this icon right here is basically your market day. So, market day is basically, as you can see, it's quite short. It's a very short time period. And unlike in other games, whenever there's events going on, the time doesn't stop. Instead, the time keeps going, even when you're actually, for example, in the market day. On the market day, you'll notice that the time doesn't stop. So it's actually very easy to miss these events. Okay, and you need to make sure to plan your day ahead if you don't want to miss any of the events. Okay, now, one thing that I am not happy with regards to this calendar is there's no indicator that tells you which day or which date you're in. So you have to basically back away using the escape key and basically take a look 17 and then go back there to check it again. So 17, as you can see, it's here, and there was actually a wedding at this time, which we missed. But yeah, so as you can see, there is that. Okay. Um, is there any penalties for missing weddings and funerals, etc.? Not really. But what these events do is that they gather pretty much everybody into one place, so it makes it easy when you need to speak with a specific person, when you want to trade, or when you want to turn in quests. There is specific festivals though. For example, this Bake Off festival, um, every month we'll have a specific festival that requires, not requires, but is interactive. It causes you to interact with the community. And so if you and usually if you win the events, you will get a reward as well. Okay, so and these events you can miss them because just like with the other events, the time doesn't stop. So even when you're in the same venue, etc., the time keeps going. Okay, and then with the events themselves, there's timers as well. So in this game, time is actually quite short. You can easily end up running. You can easily spend 2 hours, 3 hours of game time just watering your plants, for example. So make sure you keep that in mind. Now, what about this side? So in this, as you can see in this side, it shows me my family members. So there's my husband and there's my kid and there's my child. And you can click here to be able to tell where they are in the map. As you can see, there's the map. Okay. And I can turn it off. I can click here and I can see where he is as well. So everybody's in the house because it's evening time now. But a critical thing is actually when you click on the character portrait, you can actually dress them. So you can change what they wear and you can tell what is their favorite item. Okay. And you can tell their job. Now, for your spouse, most of the time your spouse will have his own job. And as you can see, Jack in this case is a carpenter, but I can actually choose to change his job if I want him to. Okay, so farm helper means he's going to help around the farm, and then look for job means he's going to change jobs to another field. In this case, I really like him being a carpenter. It's one of the reasons I chose him. So actually marrying in this game, it's kind of fun because it's not just marrying because you like the look of them or you like their dialogue. It actually means a lot when you choose their own profession as well. And in the same way, when you're child, you can actually choose. As you can see, your child has all of these in his inventory. Okay, and you can actually choose what kind of work your child does as well. So in this case, I have her as a farm helper. Okay, but but later on when I have another child, and in this case, in this playthrough, I have Jack. So my character Alexi, had Lucia through pregnancy. In the next uh, couple days, it's Jack's turn. So Jack is pregnant, and I'll have another child. And that child I'll set up as a student. So as you can see, you have lots of ways to interact with your family members through this menu. Okay, this next menu is your quest menu, and as you can see, it shows you all the different quests. A lot of the quests have timers, okay, and so like I said, time is very important in this game. What you will also notice is a lot of items in the game have basically time restrictions. So for example, if I look at this cotton bud, you can see it says 20 days until rot. Literally, it means after 20 days, this cotton bud will change into a rotten item, and that means you cannot use it anymore. The only thing you can do with a rotten item is put it in a composter to get fertilizer. And if we go and take a look at another one, see there's lemons here, and I put my mouse here, see it says 5 days until rot. So it really changes depending on depending on the item and depending on what it is, etc. As you can see, now, the other thing I want to point out here is some of the quests have different rewards. What I recommend is you basically stick with the rewards that stick with the quests that give you recipe rewards. And there's two different kinds of recipes. So the first recipe looks like this, and these are basically food recipes. So as you can see, if I complete this by giving Madeline two pieces of woolen cloth, then she will give me crab cake recipe, and I can then cook crab cakes for the future. Okay, the other kind of recipe that you can get looks like this, and this is basically a blueprint for production items, or as you can see in this case, these are decorative items like paths, fences, etc. So this is one of the ways that you build up your recipe inventory so that you can start to flesh out your gameplay. Okay, so you want to make sure those are the quests that you prioritize, you make sure you complete. Now, next thing is the village. So the village tab shows you the different character portraits of everybody in the village. Okay, you will find that as you play, especially on Saturdays and Sundays, there will be ships coming and there will be visitors in the town. So those visitors will not show up on this portrait, only the fellow villagers. And as you can see, there's a meter here. The green meter shows friendship levels. The higher the friendship level with a character, the more likelihood of them marrying you, and the higher the likelihood of them mailing you gifts and presents. And the presents can be anything, can be resources, it can be money, it can be food. And so it's actually quite worth it to build up relationship with the different villagers. But as you can see, you don't need to build up relationships with every villager. You just need to build up relationships with a few, and you'll be good to go. Okay, now what about map? So the nice thing about the map is, as you can see, it's actually quite concise. It shows you lots of the different places. So a couple of things it shows you is that first it shows you these little signposts, and in these signposts, if you left click on them, it allows you to travel. So they call it fast travel. However, what you will notice is that it'll give you a time. It's actually I would actually say it's not really fast travel, because sometimes you can actually arrive faster by walking, because sometimes it'll actually take time. However, if you're going from your farm, let's say, to the other end of the island, then yes, it'll be much faster for you to use this. So what I've found over time is tended to use the fast travel less and less, because sometimes, because of the time, because it does cost you time to do this fast travel. For example, if you're trying to find the NPC, let's say the NPC is over here. By the time you've traveled here, the NPC would have moved to another area. And so sometimes walking there can actually be faster than fast travel. Another thing that I will mention is that by hovering over these different houses, you can tell what each of them are, and they will also give you the time and days they are available. So this can be very useful when you're trying to track down people, or when you want to purchase different items. Okay. The other thing that is actually really nice about this map is when you have completed, when you have in your inventory, for example, if I have the two woolen cloth that Madeline needs in my inventory, then Madeline's character portrait will show up in the village map as well. Okay, this will make it easier for me to track her down so that I can provide her with my items. Okay, now another important tab that will probably be very useful for you later on as you play is the tutorial tab. So the tutorial goes through it. They've actually, so the tutorial in this game, they don't really tell you a whole lot, but this tutorial tab, they try to cover as many things as you're going through. And as you can see, they basically provide you with photos, instructions, etc. Is this complete? I would say there are quite a few things that I would say is still missing. There are quite a few things. For example, one thing that I really wish they have is that they'd have a tab telling you about the different crafting tools, because the different tools have different mechanics. For example, the flour mill, which is what they're showing here, actually requires three items of the same quality. So, for example, three wheat of bronze quality, and you cannot and if you're down to you cannot mix qualities because you can only choose one item at a time. So versus other items such as the drying rack or the preservative jar, so this is a preservative jar, they only need one of any quality. Okay, and for it to work. And so it appears to be very random. It doesn't actually tell you what it needs. And even when, if for example you try and click on it, it doesn't tell you, oh, you need three of this or five of that, etc. Instead, you have to kind of guess and hope that you have enough for the device to, for the crafting machine to accept it. So that is definitely one area that I wish they put some information in here as well. Okay, and that's it for the UI. So I highly recommend exploring the UI in your first day to make sure that you're familiar with it, because you'll be using it all the time. So when you press escape, you will get the options menu, so the save menu. The game does do autosave, however, it only has a few autosaves. So as you can see, there's only about three autosave files, and if you have multiple game saves, as you can see, I have a few, then basically it will whenever it autosaves, it'll basically replace the autosave of that other game. Okay, now, as you can see, the options here, there's lots of things that you can do to make the game easier for you. Okay, so first of all, there's the fishing mini game. A lot of people like to turn this off. As you can see, there's options to go timed or untimed, and pretty much the big reason why a lot of people want to turn it off is that because it's the fishing mini game is actually kind of fun, but it's slow. And so it can actually eat up your time doing the fishing mini game, and so having it off can make your fishing much faster. Okay, another thing that some people may want to change is basically how fast the NPCs age, okay, as well as your character. So basically, the game starts off with normal. Normal means that you're aging basically in the year. So basically you start off as a young adult, and then you become a full like you become an elder by the start of the second year in the game. So you, depending on whether you like that, you can change it to a faster aging if you want to experience switching to your child, for example, or a slower aging, or you can turn aging off altogether if you don't want any of the characters to age. In this playthrough, I chose slow, and one thing I've noticed is with the slow aging is that I get a lot less funerals and a lot less weddings. So if you want to get lots of funeral events, lots of wedding events, then you might want to choose normal or fast. Okay, taxes. So in this game, every week you have to pay taxes. Otherwise, your farm gets repossessed, and you pay taxes to the town hall. And but in this case, you can choose to turn it off. The interesting thing about the taxes in this game is that they actually have a gradual scaling set up, so that the more money, or it's not really money, it's more assets, because I have gone through a week wherein I had zero money, and I still ended up getting dinged quite a bit on taxes still. That's because in terms of assets, I had more assets. Like uh, I had the farm going, I had fruits maturing, etc. So over time, you will find that your taxes will go from 50 gold and go up to over 100 gold. So every week, that is something for you to be concerned with. Now, when your first season can be really tough, and so if you are finding that it's getting difficult for you to manage it, you can turn it off. All of these options you can turn on and off during your gameplay, so and it doesn't reset your game. Okay, now another thing here is player aging. So you can choose to turn off your own player aging, and the NPCs will still age. So it's up to you if whether this is an option. Now, a couple other options here. So this can really these other options, similar to the taxes, can really help with regards to survival or with regards to making the gameplay easier on you. So for example, the hunger bar, as I said, the hunger meter decreases as the time passes. And what you will also notice is that different kinds of food have different effects on the hunger meter. So, for example, like raw food, like for example, raw fruit, unprocessed vegetables, etc., they can increase your meter, but only by a very small amount. Versus if you process food either by cooking or through using a preserving jar or a drying rack, you will find that they can actually satisfy hunger much uh, it, with much a much higher. So it's always best to process food that you're going to eat or purchase them from NPCs versus actually eating them raw, because otherwise you'll be consuming like for example, 4 or 5 pieces of corn versus like one piece of bread. Now, energy, same thing. So this is with regards to your sleep. As you can see, when you turn it off, then you won't get sleepy anymore, so you can keep going for as long as you want. Same thing with diseases. So as you can see, there's an option to for the diseases to only be with the NPCs. That means things like smallpox, consumption, etc., which is contagious, they cannot pass on to your character. Versus in normal play, if you are speaking with a character that has smallpox or you get close to them, there's a chance that your character character will also develop that disease, and which is I find it a fun mechanic. Okay, but it can happen very early on in game, which can be very stressful. Okay, now tool durability and item decay. So just as I showed you earlier, your tools do have a durability, and so it's very easy, especially with the beginner tools, the simple tools, their durability is quite high. And so with regards to tools, once they basically break, they're done, and you have to repurchase them. And purchasing tools are quite expensive. So most of the tools usually cost 60 to 100 gold, and when you're first starting off, that can be really hard to keep up. And so what I recommend is making sure you visit the blacksmith every time when your tool starts to be at 25% to 50%, and then make them repair it. The one of the big reasons for this is that the blacksmith can only repair one tool a day. There will come a time wherein I believe there's always two people per profession. So for example, there's two butchers, there's two blacksmiths, there's two people who do clothing, etc. And so once the other blacksmith reaches an age, you can have them repair two tools at a time. But for the first few seasons, it will only be one tool per day. And then you get the tool back in the morning in your mail. Item decay is basically with regards to the rotting of the ingredients that you can keep. So, when you first play through and you're unfamiliar with the game, it's really hard sometimes to keep track of the food, and it's very easy to get stressed, especially when your character is always starving. And so sometimes, you just have to turn off item decay, and that allows you to keep the food in your inventory for as long as you want. Versus if you keep it on, over time, you will notice that you'll start developing more and more rotten foods, and that's because the item disintegrates. So a lot so there's different items have different uh, rotting rates. Generally speaking, any seafood, so any food you like, fish, shellfish, etc., those usually only have 2 days. A lot of the vegetables are 4 to 7 days. A lot of the cooked foods are anywhere from 3 to 5 days. So keeping in mind the days will allow you to make sure that um, you reduce the chances of the food decaying, okay, in your inventory. Another tip to make your first month in Ecos of the Plum Grove easy is by making survival salads. So, this is the best food, or one of the best foods you can have in early game. It's free, as it only consists of two ingredients. One is this violet, and then the next one is this herb called the plantain. And both of them can be gathered daily by just going and walking around the village and just paying attention to any plant on the ground that has a dark black border. This is plants that you can pick up. So there's lots of plants you can pick up. Some plants you can use in potions, but will do potion making much later down the road. And then there's also plants that will help you produce dyes, but that requires special equipment. So these are the two that you want to really focus your attention in, as basically they are needed for the survival salad recipe. So once you've picked up a couple of them, all you need to do to make the survival salad is go back to your house, go to the cooking pot, and as you can see, as long as you have the ingredients available, in your inventory and you have the recipe, and these are basically the basic recipes you start off with, you can make it. In this case, because we have the survival salad ingredients, all you need to do now is left click and it'll show up here. And depending on how many ingredients you have, so you basically need one of each. And as you can see, since I only have two violets but only one plantain, then I can only make one survival salad. So once this is ready, you just click create and then wait for the timer to finish. Once the timer is done, you just left click on the salad and now it's in your inventory. As you can see, there it is. And this salad can last for 4 days and it'll basically give you six food hunger points. So if I click on it and to consume it, you just press space. And as you can see, it's basically about like one of these bars right here. So that's about how much it will get you through. So I always recommend, if you're going to survive using the survival salad, you really only need about one of them a day, but it's best if you can do two. Okay, so that will just keep you from starving. Okay, and as you can see, once you start to get hungry, well, in this case this is sleep, so this is means that you're starting to get sleepy and you have basically 10 minutes before you get exhausted. This one means that you're not quite full, so you're still getting this icon. If you manage to fill up your hunger bar or get it until you're only missing just the last bit, this will disappear and basically you're good to go for the day. Okay, but it's okay if you are, you know, if you're basically still a little bit hungry, as long as you're not starving. Okay, so that is one of the best ways to keep your hunger meter up. You don't need to purchase bread or anything like that. When you first start, you already start with a drying rack, and the drying rack is basically a way for you to process fish. You cannot eat fish on its own because it will cause you to be sick. Now, one of the things in order to um, fish is that you need a fishing rod. To get a fishing rod, you need this particular NPC. Her name is Rose, and she is the village fisher person. And so, what you do is you go and find her and talk to her. So, as you can see, she's right here on the very first day. And you can also find her in her little fishing shack, which is over here. Okay, if you go and look at the map, here's the map, the fishing shack is over here. And you can see this fishing shack is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. or 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So it's one of the ones that has the more complicated times. Another thing to keep in mind is that Rose is not limited to just her fishing shack. She can actually maneuver, or you can actually find her all throughout the village outside of the fishing hours. It's just that by going with the fishing shack hours, these are more the reliable times you can find her. Now, one of the funny things here is that sometimes it's actually hard to tell how to get into the shack. So as you can see, she stands right here, but the door to the shack is actually to the side. So as you can see, there it is. Okay, so to get the fishing rod, you just talk to Rose, left clicked on her, right? You can talk with her to introduce yourself. And as you can see, as you talk with the NPCs, you get either gossip or tips, and you can choose to trade. Okay, and there's the fishing rod. Unfortunately, she never gives it to you for free, so you have to make that purchase. So you have to trade it with certain things. So a quick way to trade it is, as you can see, so you left click, and this is basically from her to you, and the bottom is from you to her. And at the bottom here, you see the coins, right? So right now, you basically owe $85 going to her. So this game works by bartering. So you can barter certain items. So as you can see here, there's journey cakes, there's pemmican, there's turnip seeds, and there's wood. So the wood is you can get wood daily by shaking trees, so you can easily trade this. Okay, there, and as you can see, I managed to reduce it by 20, 2 times 10. And now, as you can see, the other thing is, as you can see, Journey Cake has only 4 days until rot. So that means after 4 days, if I don't consume it or sell it, then I cannot use it anymore. It'll turn into a rotten material. The same thing with pemmican. Now, pemmican, as you can see, has more days, so it has 22 days until rot. So, if I'm looking for money to afford this fishing rod, then I can sell the journey cakes. And as you can see, now it's down to 23, so that means if I don't add any more items, I can still buy the fishing rod and have 2 gold left. Now, the nice thing about this is you can recover the gold. Now, making money in Ecos of the Plum Grove can be both easy and hard, because as you can see, in order to make money, this is what you do with every NPC. You have to trade with them. You also have to keep in mind their money. So in this case, I'm going to press this, and there's my fishing rod. Okay, now after you get your fishing rod, you can now go fish. This area right here is the ocean, right? So you can get the seawater fish. And now one of the things you can do that is very good is that you can press escape and get look through your options. And as you can see in the options, there's lots of things you can do to make your life easier. One of the things here is the fishing game. So I can go either timed, untimed, or off. In this case, I'm going to go times to show you what the fishing game looks like. Okay, and now I'm going to click on my fishing rod, and as you can see, there's a little bit of instructions. So in this case, we go press space near a water source to fish, then wait for fish to bite, and when you see an alert, press space to try and catch it. Follow the path toward the fish. So click OK, and we're going to try it. So I'm going to press space, and as you can see, he automatically faces the ocean or the body of water. And now there's the exclamation mark, press space, and there it is. And all you need to do is just use the WASD key to follow the fish. And in this case, I caught a shoe leather. Okay, now let's try that again. There it is. So now use WASD to follow the fish. Okay, and because it is time, you want to make sure to catch the fish before the time runs out. So there it is. And in this case, I caught a clam. Okay, and as you can see, with the clam, it rots after 4 days. Okay, and you can keep doing this all day. Now, how do you sell the items? You just go to not just to Rose, but to anybody. For example, here's another NPC. We can contact her. Okay, you don't have to talk to them. You can just directly click trade. Okay, and as you can see, she has 63 coins that we can try to get. So the clam itself is only 5, so we can click on this, and then we can sell it to her for 5. As you can see, the old shoe, we cannot sell the old shoe. So even if I click on it, it won't let me. So in this game is very interesting because you cannot sell everything. So there will be some things that you catch on the ocean, like the old shoe, some of the algae you cannot sell, etc. So you have to kind of be mindful. So now, if you I choose to sell it to her, I can get 5 gold back. There it is. And now this transaction is done and I can just escape out of the transaction. Other places where you can go fish. So if you go here, so this is the mayor's mansion. Okay, there is a river here. So it's flowing water, and you're going to get different fish from a river versus this ocean and the lake. But it's the exact same process. As you can see, I was able to catch a crayfish. Now, if you're tired of the minigame, remember you can always change it in the options menu and you can go off. Generally speaking, I go off because then it's just faster. Now, so this is your river. Where's the another common fishing area? This is the lake. So it's going to catch you different fish versus the river. And then here is another river. So the waterfall area, this waterfall area is all considered river. So you're going to catch river fish in this area right here. Now, what about in your farm? So if you look at the map, right now we're in this area right here where the waterfall, the river earlier was down here. Okay, so now let's go to our your house area. Later on, if you decide to go to do the farming, one of the earliest recipes that the game will reward you with is a well, so you can set it up. But if you don't get that recipe, you there is this area over here. So I believe this is still considered a lake. So if you go fishing in this area, you will get lake fish. So that's the tips I have with regards to fishing and the different areas to fish and where to get your fishing rod. The next tip I have is to build as many preserving jars as possible. Right from the get-go, you get a drying rack, which you can use to put fruits. You can use to put fruits, um, or even so you can use meat, fruits, and fish and vegetables, and you can put them here, and it's a way for you to process these foods so you can eat them without getting sick. If you eat something raw such as meat and fish directly, you can fill up your hunger meter. However, you're not going to feel it by much, and you are likely to get sick from it. And when you're sick, it can slow down your work because basically, for example, you can be vomiting. So while you're walking, you'll have to stop and vomit. Or if you have a cold, for example, you have to stop to wipe your nose all the time when you're whatever you're doing. So it can actually be a very annoying to be sick in this game. It's also a very fun mechanic. But yes, one of the best ways to avoid getting sick is to either use a drying rack or a preservation jar. Now, why don't I recommend the drying rack? First of all, when you look in your crafting table, you're going to notice that you don't actually have a drying rack recipe available. Next is, even if you do have it available, the drying rack requires both nails and coal. In this game, nails, coal, iron bars, copper bars, etc., is not easily gotten because you don't start off with a smelter. and you don't have access to like a blacksmithing table or anything like that. Instead, in order to get these other resources like the iron bar or the nails, you have to buy them from the blacksmith, and they are not the cheapest. Okay? I mean, the nails are, I believe it's around 18 gold, and then the iron bar is around 105 gold. And so you can see it takes quite a bit of resources in order to afford them. So, but if you look at the preservative jar, you can gather the wood easily, and you can gather the stone, right? These are available to you for free. The stone you can get either by breaking the rocks around your farm or by mining, and then the wood you can get by shaking the trees around the village. So now you only need to spend money on the nails. So in terms of resource intensity, the preservative jar is much quicker to get. So let's go and try to create a preservative jar. So right now I need a couple more logs, but most importantly I need the nails. So let us see if we can get the nails. So first, let's try to collect as many trees as possible. The trees, the logs, because they're a daily renewable source, and as you can see, there's your ingredients for. And as you can see, it says thick black outline can be collected off the ground. So these you can use to make survival salads, or you can just sell them. Okay, so let's just try to collect as much as we can. No, there's no trees here. Let's go up there. And if you remember, we need 30 logs. So any logs over 30 we can sell, and each log is 10 gold. So we need 10, I believe the recipe says 10 nails. Yeah. One thing that I wish in this game it has is I wish in the menu it has an option to view the recipes, because unfortunately in this game you cannot get the recipes. You cannot know what the recipes are until you look at the um, until you go back to your stove or your crafting table. So you have to try to remember what the recipes are or write it down somewhere. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to know what you can exchange it with. And as you can see, this is the blacksmith's house. So in terms of the map, it's basically you can use this sign. This is the closest fast travel point, and it's this house at the very end. So you can just go in, and Roland Smith is the main blacksmith, and you can click on this him. Case, as you can see, um, you need 8 nails. You need 10 nails. In this case, he doesn't have enough. So in order for me to craft a preservative jar, I actually need 2 days. So to get 8 nails, it's 18 gold each. And if I click on it, as you can see, I need 144. Um, Not enough money. And so let's see how much we can get by selling these things. So as you can see, you cannot sell the plantain, but you can sell the violets. And if I want to just sell, so if you want to just sell one item at a time, you right click. Oh, sorry, you left click. As you can see, there it is. And then in this case, if I want to sell So in this case, yes, I can buy these 8 nails as long as I'm willing to sell all of this, and I get 6 gold back, and there it is. Okay, so now I have 8 nails. Now this list does refresh every day, so I have to talk to him again the next day to get the next set of nails. Now the list is random. The price do not change, but the quantity does. Okay, and basically what he sells every day also changes, which is a very interesting mechanic as well. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, for example, in this case he only sells one ring, but in some days he will sell three different rings. Okay, some days he will be selling, for example, two hay seeds, but in other days he'll sell other seeds. So you can actually get seeds from different people, and he is one of them that constantly has some seeds. So as you can see, the coal is 13 gold each. So with regards to the drying rack, I believe you need 5 coal, and so 5 coal plus I think 5 nails. So it's up to you whether you think whether you think it's cheaper. I personally think it's easier to just focus on getting one resource, and hoarding nails is better than hoarding coal because nails is actually used in so many recipes versus coal is only used in a few. And that's why I recommend making sure you get the preservative jar as soon as possible. Okay? Let's make our preservative jar. So to make a preservative jar, you go through the crafting table, left click on it, and then click on the recipe. If you have all of them available, as you can see, you're going to be able to click create. If you are missing certain ingredients, so for example, in this case, if I'm missing the coal, I can it will show up in red and I'm not going to be able to create it. So let's go with the preservative jar. Let's go create. And there it is. To place your preservative jar, all you need to do is click on it and then click on the location. Now, preservative jars and drying racks, right, are indoor items, so you're not able to place them outside. Okay. Now, if you need to move an item, you use the hammer. So, for example, if I want to move my preservative jar, I click on the hammer, click on the item then goes back to my inventory, and I can now place it in a completely different location if I want. So let me see where else I can place it. As you can see, the fireplace, there is a certain space requirement for the fireplace. So but let's say I place it here beside my bed.